having a family while you start and build a business is definitely not a reason not to do it either. I mean, I want to be clear. I had a smaller family than I have now when I started, but I've always had kids while I've built businesses for the last decade. One of my wife's eldest he's 17 at the moment, so he's been around, and I was married before I started building businesses and all that sort of thing. So certainly it's not a reason not to. Having children particularly can give you a greater sense of urgency around building a business as well.
Welcome to the Dropship Podcast, where you'll learn how to build and grow a high-ticket dropshipping business and hear stories from successful e-commerce entrepreneurs. Let's kick this thing off. Hey, welcome to the Dropship Podcast. And today, John and I want to touch on what it might look like to start your business when you have a family. I'm positive there are people watching this video, listening to this podcast, who are thinking about finally starting that business they've been dreaming about. And they probably have some hangups around, how am I going to do this when I have kids? I need to bring them to sports, or I need to change diapers, or how am I going to work with my spouse on this so that we can understand we're trying to build something for the future here. How will there just be enough time in the day to get this done? And so we get a lot of comments, I think, when we have people interested in buying our course who have a family and they're unsure if it's the right time or not. And so it felt fitting to do a podcast on this. As John's got a dozen kids, it feels like sometimes, and I've got 3 of my own, and there's a lot going on, but at the same point, you can do this. And so hopefully we can touch on some of the concerns people have before they start building a business when they have a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's quite a few things to think about here. I think certainly having a family does add an extra layer of challenge to the journey of building a business, or transitioning to a business from a job that you might have, a stable income and that sort of thing, and having a partner in your life, a spouse, whether you're married or not, certainly also can add another layer into all of that as well. And so I'd certainly say to anybody out there who doesn't have those things in their life yet, really prioritize building a business now, right? Because it doesn't get easier than when you're by yourself. And you're kind of, don't have some of those other factors that you have to consider in your life, those other responsibilities. So really prioritize building. If you're still, haven't got to that stage of your life yet where you have a family or you're a partner as such, because you can be there's a lot less to think about, and there's a lot less to balance and juggle at that point in your life. So it's a great time to build a business. But absolutely, having a family while you start and build a business is definitely not a reason not to do it either. I mean, I want to be clear. I had a smaller family than I have now when I started, but I've always had kids while I've built businesses for the last decade. Mine of my wife's eldest he's 17 at the moment, so He's been around, and I was married before I started building businesses and all that sort of thing. So certainly it's not a reason not to. I think it's, if anything, I think probably, and I'm pretty sure this is, when I talk to you, I get this sense as well, Ben, is that having children particularly can give you a greater sense of urgency around building a business as well. Like, you want to, or changing your life or whatever it might be. Like I often hear you mention how, particularly with the arrival of your latest child, it's kind of changed the way that you look at the world or look at the things that you do. And I certainly get a greater sense of urgency that you want to, do things that I guess your kids would be proud of, or build a future for them, via what you do in business. If you're listening in and you'd like to take the first steps towards building your own high-ticket dropshipping business, head to dropshipbreakthru.com/go, where we've got a free training waiting for you that's going to walk you through the first steps you need to take to start your own high-ticket dropshipping business. And I'm going to walk you through an actual example of what one of these businesses looks like.
Yeah, I can think of a million reasons to run a business while having kids. And you just said one of them, right? Like being a shining example, I think is amazing. In fact, none of my kids call this work. They don't say, oh, Ben's going to work for the day. They say Ben's going to fun. And we make a point of that because this is fun. I enjoy doing this every day. But more importantly, it gives me options. I didn't have kids the last time I had a job. And I can't imagine having to go back to a job. So I have empathy for people who are in that position right now, who have kids and they work a 9 to 5. and they want to build a business, right? Just working the 9 to 5, like, where do you send your kids every day? You either have to get a daycare or send them to school, which is essentially a fucking daycare. We homeschool our kids because we don't want to send them off to, sit in a chair and be told what to do. Like, that's just not our style, right? And so building a business allows me to live my belief system with our children. It allows me to go home at lunch and have a salad and say hi to my kids. It allows me to, do things with them in the morning if I want to before I come into the office, things like that. It gives me so much more freedom. And at the same point, they know I'm working hard for something. When they ask me, hey, like this last weekend, I went to Arizona and I hung out with Bill, one of our students who was on the podcast recently. And they asked, hey, why do you have to go? And I try to reframe it. I don't have to go. I get to go. I get to go spend time with Bill and help him build his business, help him grow his business. That's incredible. That's a lot of fun. And I get to see, Bill's life change at the same time. And so, I don't know. I think there's so many reasons to build a business with a family versus, the only one you can think of that's not is the time thing. And believe me, I get it, right? And you're going to need, hopefully, a spouse who's on your team there where they share the goals that you have. I think Heather and I had a really long conversation when we first got together of like, here's what we want to build together. Here's the sacrifices that's going to come on your end for that to happen. Here's the sacrifices that are going to come on my end for that to happen. Are we both on board with this? And thankfully we were, and we make a hell of a team.
Yep. I think you have to think about that and put more effort into that than you do, like, and the understanding that needs to occur there with your partner than you do with your kids. You know what I mean? I mean, kids kind of go along with anything. As long as they feel loved and cared for and that sort of thing. I think the challenge for a lot of people to getting started and a lot of the fear and whatnot. I certainly think I felt that a little bit in the beginning because business was something I think I was much more into when I first started than my wife is or was. And so I think personally I had a lot of fear around for a period of time, not these days, but for a period of time around like, well, I've got these things I'd love to do, but what if she doesn't want to do that? What if she says no? Like that's going to be a pretty big thing, right? Because I feel very passionately about it, that it's something that we should do. And so I think there was a period where I found it, a little bit challenging to talk about and really explain myself on it properly, where what I was thinking, what I had as a vision and that sort of thing. And, I think that can hold people back sometimes as well. It's just like the fear of like you put your ideas out there to one of the people that you're closest to in life, and they say, "I think that's stupid." I think that can really hold people back from getting started as well. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to have a healthy relationship, those are the things that you've got to be able to talk about. You've got to find a way to do that. But
I mean, you have to have a good foundation of communication, right? There's going to be moments where you're going to have to go a little harder, and your husband or your wife is going to have to, spend a little extra time with the family because you're trying to build something. And so this is a good example, John. It's 5:30 on a Wednesday night. I try to be done by 4 every day. You and I talk every Wednesday night. You're Thursday. You get up at 6 a.m. and I stay till 6 p.m. just so we can get this stuff done, right? And that's a sacrifice I make. I miss dinner with my family, or I just get home in time for dinner, depending on what time of year it is. And so that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. That's a sacrifice my wife is willing to make so that you and I can build the business that we're trying to build and change the lives we're trying to build. And so anyone who's thinking about doing this, you got to have that conversation first with your spouse, whatever that looks like, of just, here's where I want to get to. Are you on board? Like, do you want to get there too? And really try to understand how much work it's going to be, because building a business is work. It is what it is. Like, there's going to be time that needs to be put in, and so that has to come from somewhere. And whether that's spending with kids or not, I would debate with you, John, and maybe you agree. There's probably some other time you can pull from that isn't from your family. Even when you have kids, it's not all spent with kids. It's not all spent with your wife. There's still probably some time in there for Netflix. There's still some time in there for other things that I think you can pull from those windows of time to work on your business. But make no doubt about it, there is going to be some sacrifices in your family as well.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some level. Like, something has to change. You're unlikely to build a successful business with everything staying as it is now. But at the same time, I would challenge you, like, should it stay the way it is now? Like, like you say, are you making the best use of all of the time that you have available to you right now? So in the beginning, yeah, I mean, it might just be after the kids go to bed, you're working on your business. But at times, you're right, you should, and I think it's okay to pull some time away from your business, as long as you have the buy-in from your partner, from your spouse or whatever, to that vision that you have. I think that's the important part. You've got to have a vision of where you want to go, and you've got to be able to have that developed enough that you can explain it to somebody else and have them understand it as well. Even if they don't necessarily believe it's possible or whatever, at least that they have the trust in you to go and, make the best effort to making that vision become a reality, or at least get down the path of making it a reality. But I have heard from people that are like, I don't want to start a business because it feels selfish and I'll be taking time away from my family. And that's 100% true, but is that a bad thing? And I don't think it's a bad thing, right? I mean, the reality is, if you took a bit of time away from your family for the next 2 years, and the result of that was the options and the time that you spend with your family is much greater than it is now, how is that not worth it? Like, you know what I mean? Your kids, you could change the course of your children's lives. If you've got a child who's, let's say, 2 years old now, you got to work hard for 2 years until they're 4, and then from 4 onwards, they have a fundamentally different life because you built something fantastic. How is that 2-year sacrifice not worth it? Like, I'd love somebody to explain that to me. And I'll put this into context, like a little bit from my own journey. Like, I worked really hard for the first couple of years of building businesses. For a lot of that time, I was working a job. And I was probably pretty selfish with my time. I probably missed some things because I was building businesses and that sort of thing. But at the same time, the 3 children I had after that point, and I quit my job, so I was at home. I was working from home, but I was at home, right? My wife hasn't worked since then because my business was supporting that. Before then, she was working full-time as well, living in Australia. Cost of living is pretty high. We were living, fairly expensive, all of that sort of thing. So we had to work 2 jobs, right? So we went from doing that to neither of us working a job. And so the 3 children I've just had more recently spent all of their time with both parents, right? Prior to that, when we were both working full-time, we'd leave home at 6:30 in the morning. Kids would go to like daycare or something. You come home at 6:30 at night. Then the kids are asleep by 7:30. So you see your kids for like an hour or 2 a day. So to go from that to seeing one parent completely all day, and then another parent is there in the same house and you see them on and off throughout the day. I mean, there are so many studies that can demonstrate the benefit for the entirety of one of your child's life if they spend X amount of time between the years of 0 and 3 with their parents. Like there are multiple studies that demonstrate this, right? And so to say that it's selfish to like spend some time building a business or whatever, I think it's if you're serious about it and you're consistent and you actually do it rather than just sitting in a room fantasizing about doing it in reality and just listening to podcasts and not actually taking any action. But if you're actually doing stuff, I don't see any world where it's a bad thing. Not to mention, as I say, like, I think the example that you kind of set for your children, even if you're not super successful, just being the person that goes out and does something you believe in and even attempts to build something different is fundamentally better than setting the example that you're going to work a job you don't really like for people you don't really care about for 50 years of your life. And if you're that person, like, I'm not knocking you, but like as a child, I think I know what I would have preferred to have seen. You know what I mean? And so I can't, like, I get where people who haven't started yet worrying about the sacrifice that might be required, or the time spent away from family from time to time that might be required to build something. But like, I don't see a world where that's not a massive benefit for you.
And it's the easiest time ever for you to do that. Like, think what you would have to do 50 years ago. Like, you would have to quit your job now and go start something, right? And make a big investment or borrow money. Almost every other business on the planet is the same sort of way. You know, go open up a franchise in your town, or like there's unlimited opportunity to build a business from your phone or from your laptop in your free hours. And like this business is an example of that. And truly, you're removing the cap on your ability to earn wealth, because it is simply a byproduct of the skills you learn, and you're going to learn a lot of skills doing this. And so, you know, given where I was, and maybe this was different where you were, John, I was driving a forklift. I was working a high-end blue-collar job, if you will. I was doing okay for the area, but the skills that I would learn through building a business, whether that's running Google Ads, doing SEO, email marketing in general, those skills I've been able to leverage to far more wealth than I could have ever done at my current job. And I would challenge that's the case for most people, unless we have some, you know, doctors or high-end earners in listening to us, or even high-end, you know, white-collar workers. Most people, your earning potential is capped where you are. And it's someone else's decision. It's not yours. Where in your business, you know, over time, you're going to learn skills that are highly transferable. But if you just apply them in your business, you've already removed the cap. And America loves an entrepreneur. They love to give you the ability to earn what you're capable of earning, and they give you tax breaks in order to grow your business and hire people as well. And so to me, it's more of a, again, it goes back to the options, right? Wealth gives you options. Money gives you options. It doesn't remove your problems. It removes your current problems and gives you a whole new set of problems to think about, or a different way to think about it, if you will. But, you know, for a lot of people, including myself, when I started, that was the problem, was the wealth side of things. And now I'm uncapped. I can make as much as I want to make. I can put in the time I want to put in. And to me, that's the bigger side of it. I think I really struggled, like, being told what to do, John. I was the worst employee known to man, and so I was destined for this life. But I think there's some other people who feel that deep down inside, that, you know, they're doing what they need to do to support their family, but they know there's something more in there. They know that they're capable of more. They know they're capable of showing their family that they can do more. They know they're capable of showing their bank account that they are worth more. There's a lot of people sitting out there who are accepting their reality rather than embracing what they're capable of. And I hope you and I are a shining example of what you can do if you put in the work. And obviously we're 10 years down the road. And I know when I first started, I fucking hated listening to people who were 10 years down the road, because I would just compare myself to them. Oh, it must be nice to be up there saying that. But like, we started literally, again, driving a forklift at a Walmart distribution center and coming home and hopping outside and answering phone calls and doing what I needed to do in the hours that were available to me to make this a reality. And I'm continuing to put in those hours so that I can build something truly special for my family. And I encourage anyone listening to this to do the same, like to take this opportunity to build what you've been dreaming about building.
Thanks for listening to the Dropship Podcast. You can find all the show notes for this episode at dropshippodcast.com. And if you're ready to take the next step in your dropshipping journey, we invite you to join us inside Dropship Breakthru, where John and I will walk you through step by step in starting your own high-ticket dropshipping e-commerce business. But that's not all. Dropship Breakthru will also teach you everything you'll need to know to grow your business and take it to the next level. So head over to dropshipbreakthru.com and sign up for our free training that will help you take the first steps towards building and growing your own profitable high-ticket dropshipping business.